right, folks, this is Productivity for Teams. Now, many of the tactics we're talking about today, this is strategy and tactics on how you can help the people around you be even more productive. Productivity right now is a challenge for lots and lots of folks, and I completely understand that we've got people who struggle with this. It's a new year, and for many people, it sounds very exciting, but frankly, the last couple of years have given people their share of crises, challenges, and changes. And so because of that, we need to make sure that we as leaders, we as coworkers, we as fellow humans are helping other people be even more productive. We know psychologically that when we are more productive, we're actually happier. This is why so many people sometimes struggle in retirement, because they sometimes don't feel as though they are as productive as they were before. They may be very productive, but maybe it's not as tangible. And sometimes that can lead into a cycle. Some of you know that one of my New Year's resolutions is to skim a book a day. And to keep myself accountable for skimming that book a day, I am posting that on my Facebook page every single day. And sometimes it's a long summary, sometimes it's a short summary, sometimes I just might say, I just skimmed it and here's a highlight. Maybe it's an excerpt, but I am skimming a book a day. And some of the books that I am skimming have to do with brain activity and how our brains are uniquely positioned to feed off of our productivity, enhance our productivity, or in some cases, we struggle with productivity simply because of how our emotional state is at the time. So we know this is all connected. There are tangible research data that indicate this. So we know that making sure that we are as productive as possible is super helpful. So again, as a leader or a manager or just a fellow human being, it's our responsibility to support and motivate the people around us, especially when times are tough. This is where we all need to band together and do a little bit better job of being supportive with each other, because there are crises all around us. I taxonomize as many things as I can because I know that our brains are hardwired to try to put things in categories. So I try to do that because then it allows me to manage those categories. I look at crises, challenges, and changes in the world around us in four main areas. And if you've seen one of my keynotes in the last year, you may have seen a slide that looks a little bit like this. I look at it as, what are the geopolitical crises that we're thinking about right now? What are the economical crises that we might be facing right now? What are the workplace challenges that we might be facing? What are some domestic things that frankly take up some of our thinking time and make us worry? These are all around us. Some people get so distracted by all of these things around us that they are unable to be productive. And when they're unable to be productive, we know that it can lead into a cycle that is not so healthy. Now, last week, we covered what 2023 looks like. We covered a strategic plan. I mentioned the business plan template, which if you need a longer term business plan template, that's what that was about. My business plan template, which is one page, and then the 12 months of activity. So that's what we did last week. Today, we're focusing specifically on the strategies and the tactics to help your teams be more productive. So there is a strategy element to this, but there's also very specific tactics. So number one, nothing good happens without some kind of clear goal and clear direction. So this is where we are heading first. Know your goals, know what you need to do, and set directions. Now, folks, I need to confess something right away. I frequently work with other people, and I expect them sometimes to read my mind. I expect them to understand what I'm thinking, what I meant to say, what my intention was, and I expect them to be able to figure the rest out. That's not always very realistic. So again, part of setting the goals means setting the clear direction as well. And part of that clear direction is setting the intention. Now, here's what I mean by the intention. Sometimes my team doesn't realize that my intention might be full of kindness and love, happiness, but it may not come across that way. Maybe I am texting and the text got cut short. Maybe I started a text on a plane and then I lost signal. Maybe it just comes across not the way I wanted it to. How do you fix this? You meet with your team, you talk to your folks, you set the clear goals with clear direction, and define those goals to figure out their individual roles and responsibilities. This is where many people sometimes Parents do it sometimes with their kids. They say, set the table to no one in particular. And then they are invariably surprised when no one sets the table. We have to be very, very clear on who is supposed to do the activity and what is expected from them. So number 2, remind people of their purpose and their importance. Many people right now, and again, the state of the world, all the crises, need the focus you provide when you help them identify their purpose. One of my favorite authors of all time is Steven Pressfield. Steven Pressfield wrote books that you know of, you just maybe don't know that he's the author. For example, he wrote the book, The Last of the Amazons. He wrote the book, The Gates of Fire, which the movie The 500 is based off of. He wrote The Legend of Bagger Vance. But he also wrote in his later years things that are introspective, but very, very interesting. And in his later works, one of my favorite, I think, Sun Tzu wrote The Art of War. Well, Pressfield writes the War of Art, where he talks about the struggle. He talks about the fact that everybody meets with resistance. And this resistance oftentimes looks like procrastination, or it looks like the inability to be productive, or it looks like a lack of forward movement. He says, because once you realize what it is you need to be doing, you've got your goals, there's all of these other things that get in the way. And so in The War of Art by Pressfield, he says it's really important to, again, remind people of their purpose and their importance in what gets things done. So as we look at that, as we pay attention to all of the things going on around us, we've got to make sure that people understand, hey, you're really important. And when you are important in the universe, you've got to pay good attention to what is going on, and you know what's expected of you. You know how your work figures into the big picture, and you know what that looks like. Everyone's work is important. Some people feel less important than others, and we as leaders have to help those people feel important. And I'm just going to double check some sound things to make sure everybody's good. All right, great. Now, the Great Resignation has also yielded discontent in the workplace. Some people say, I've had it, I just can't take it anymore. And because of that, I'm just going to leave my job. The grass is greener. The grass looks greener from my perspective to somebody else. I'm just not going to do this anymore. All right. Fair, but for many people, that Great Resignation is partly a leadership failure. We know that what keeps people in jobs, salary attracts, benefits entice, but we know that great leadership and flexibility is key to what's happening. So the Great Resignation is a symptom, I think, of workplaces not necessarily helping people understand their purpose and understand their importance. Now, McKinsey came out with a study last year on this, and they said that making sure that people understand that what they do at work is critically important, and I think it is. So one of the tools I have for you, I've got a series of tools. These are tools, tactics, tips that I use all the time. I have a series of these 85-minute plans, and every single one of my programs includes 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 of these 5-minute plans. Now, this particular 5-minute plan, as part of this, is how you help your team have the conversation. So think about it. Let's just purge some of the demons from last year. In 3 words, describe how business was in the past year. Was it great? Was it awesome? Was it disappointing? Just 3 words. And then for your own mental health, describe, your personal life and your health in the past year. Was it improving? Was it disappointing again? Was it a struggle? There's all those things. And then describe your personal relationships. How are things going with the personal relationships in your life? Now, here's where you as a leader can have the conversation with your team members that is helpful. Ask your folks, hey, what are 3 things that you worried about last year that, as it turned out, you didn't need to worry about? Maybe somebody in your family got sick. Maybe you're worried about finances. Maybe you're worried about, the stock market. Well, you can't control the stock market. And if you're invested in tech stocks, you're probably down by 30%. Well, you can't really worry about that this year because what's done is done. So what was the best decision you made last year? And what helped make you successful last year? And what were your biggest accomplishments last year? 1, 2, 3, whatever you have. And then here's what I love. Are there 3 people you can thank for helping last year? What 3 people can you say, just send them a note, send them a text and say, hey, this is fantastic. Thanks so much for the help. Or maybe it was years before, or maybe it was something they did or said. And then we get into how we migrate into what's more important this year. What is some unfinished business that's still left over from last year? And do we need to pay attention to it this year? What was last year's low point? And how did we move past that? And what can we do to avoid that in the future? And then who can I work with? And who can I ask for help? And who can I mentor this next year? Because I got to tell you, folks, for many people, they sometimes don't realize that their life, they look at their friends on Facebook and they compare themselves to other people. Comparison is awful. And you compare your life to other people or people who see on TV. Last week, I talked about the fact that for many people, Christmas is a tough time because you think your family doesn't look like what happens in a Hallmark movie, and then you're kind of sad about that. So this comparison idea is just not very healthy. Wherever you are 2 steps ahead of somebody else. And that is somebody you can reach back behind you and grab them and get them in front of you like a good NASCAR bump draft and give them a push forward wherever you are. Even if you think, oh, I'm not as successful as fill in the blank. Oh, I'm not as whatever, fill in the blank. You are 2 steps ahead of somebody else who really needs you. And those 2 steps are really important. So then we get into what's my top goal for this next year? And what are the top 3 actions I can take to make that goal a reality? So some of these lend themselves to group conversations with your teams. Some of them are, hey, last year we had a low point. So I'll share with you that I've got a series of leadership videos that are brand new for 2023. And I was going to start off the year highlighting a company I really like. They did an amazing job when there was a crisis situation at the airport in Dallas Love Field. And of course, the company was Southwest. And that was supposed to be my big kickoff program for 2023. But then they had some mistakes that happened in December. And so if I were them, I would say, that was kind of our low point for last year. Now, how are we going to avoid that in the future? So I think it's really important for us to look backwards, to take the lessons from it, but not dwell on it, figure out what we can leave behind, and then move forward. So number 3, communicate more than you think you should. As I started off the conversation, right before this meeting, I had a meeting with my team members because I'd been sending them individual short, choppy emails, hoping that they would put it all together with all the projects I'm trying to work on and understand what I mean. Folks, communication is not just the words, it's the tone, it's the intention. And here's what I mean by the intention. When you are driving and you've run a stop sign, and this is my favorite example, you immediately look around because you didn't mean to run the stop sign. And because of that, you look around, you're like, oh no, and you feel really terrible. And then you're just relieved that there wasn't, a police officer there and you didn't hurt anybody and all that. But if you're watching somebody run a stop sign, what you think is, wow, what a jerk. Because again, you can't see the intention. So communicate more than you think you should. Encourage open communication and dialogue and create opportunities for people to share their ideas and ask the question. And sometimes I think, and I'm really guilty of this, which is why I include this, because I think I have a very clear idea of what's going to happen. And sometimes I think I have the best way to get there. And I got to share with you folks, sometimes I am wrong. I need to make sure that my team says, hey, I think I know where you're going. And if you tell me where you want to go, I might have a better way for you to get there. Share ideas, share concerns, and as a team say, where could we be going if we could figure this out? What needs to happen for us to develop this? How do we help each other be more productive and support each other? And that's number 4, offer the support and the tools to help people plan more effectively. Now, folks, this is the longest section that I'm going to talk about today because it encompasses so many of the tactics that I think people need now. And some of you might find them helpful. There's hopefully something in here for everybody. So let's figure out what tools we need. And that means making sure your people are set up for success. I have worked in organizations where they expected people to do very high caliber work using 20-year-old computers. Not kidding. 20-year-old computers, software that hadn't been updated in years. They would crash all the time. People were knocked out all the time. Reliability was not high. And yet they were demanding high quality work. Well, that meant not having the right resources and tools to do the job. So your team, again, if you've got a team, or it might be you might need more training on something. You might need more tools on something. You might need some accountability. Some of you know that I do some executive coaching work, and about 30% of that is just accountability. They know they're going to talk to me, and sometimes they say, you know what, I knew I was going to talk to you this morning, so I knew I had to get this done because I said I was going to get this done. It's important to my team and my product, my profitability for my company. So sometimes it's accountability. Sometimes you might need additional staff, or you might just need additional tools. So here's some of the tools that I use, again, all the time. This is the 5-minute productivity plan. The first aspect on this, and again, all of these plans are just one page, is how do I take control of the top projects that are weighing me down? My life would be better. So think about it. If you could just get these things off your back, how would that feel to you? And I know I'm talking to some engineers here. I know, William, you're on board. And as engineers, we're kind of trained not to view this in a feeling sort of way. But if you could just get some of these products and projects done, how would that make you feel? So what would your life be better if you didn't have to worry about this? And then, do I need help to get these done? Yes or no? Sometimes you just got to do it. And in those cases, I'm a big fan of setting a timeline. Say, for the next 20 minutes, I'm just going to work on this. Do I want help to get this done? Well, wanting help and needing help are two different things. If I had help, would it get done faster? And if the answer is yes, get help. Who can I ask for help on this? SDS. SDS is stop doing stupid. To be more effective about the important things, we have to stop doing the things that really don't matter. And yet when I talk to people, and I'm not talking about spending quality time with the people you love, I think that's really important. I'm talking about things that take up your time on a daily basis that you really kind of don't need to do. Maybe you're spending a lot of time deleting emails that don't matter. Maybe you are spending a lot of time figuring out, what this project needs to be or not be. And maybe somebody else has a much clearer picture of this. I will tell you that I have an executive coach too. And that coach, I meet with him because he sees things that I can't see because I'm so far in the forest. I can't see the trees. And sometimes he just goes that, and I'm like, oh, good point. So rely on other people. And sometimes SDS, stop doing stupid means doing things in a smarter, more efficient, more effective way. And sometimes it means getting help. Now, time vampires. We all have time vampires. These are people, products, things that simply take up our time. So today at my office, for example, my dogs who are, by the way, they know what it means when mommy says, mommy's on a podcast, mommy's on a webinar, and they go to their respective dog beds and they snore. It's hilarious. But they were barking earlier because a truck had pulled up into my office space. Now, here's the thing. I was not expecting any deliveries, and I knew that the truck was not supposed to be there. So part of my day then meant going out and telling him, hey, I think you've got the wrong address. And him saying, no, I'm pretty sure it's the right address. I'm like, oh, I'm pretty sure this is not the right address. This is the right address. I pointed to the number, and he said, oh, it's not the right address. And he'd already loaded things off. And now we have to load back up. Well, that's a time vampire. That is something that wasted time that was not planned into the day. Sometimes it's people. Sometimes it is a distraction. Sometimes it is it's a phone call, or it's an emergency, or it's a family member. Make sure that you're managing those time vampires, and then figure out a way to take, as Cheryl says, you're absolutely right. Sometimes it's not just time they're sucking from you. It's energy. They're like the Death Eaters in Harry Potter. Dementors or Death Eaters, I always confuse the two, but they're sucking all the joy and happiness out of you. We've got to be able to say stop. We have to be able to put parameters on our time and our energy. And there's nice ways to do this. Hey, I'm on a deadline. Can we please catch up later? Thanks for stopping by. Thanks for talking. I have to go because I've got a 5 o'clock. And that 5 o'clock can be with you. That is okay. You have to know what works for you. I would love it if in the chat you could share, hey, how do you protect your time? What do you do to stop other people from interrupting you? If you want to throw some ideas in the chat, I will cheerfully share them with the group as well. And then do what we do best. Folks, we tend to gravitate toward doing the things quickly, those things that we like doing and the things that we're good at. Here's the issue. Ask yourself, am I the best person to do this? Can someone else do this better, or can they do this at a lower opportunity cost? And by opportunity cost, this is what I mean. An opportunity cost is, let's say you are the CEO of a big, important company and you're making $200 million a year. Should you do your own typing, even if you can touch type? The answer is no. You should dictate it. You should tell somebody to draft the email, because your time per minute can be better spent doing something else. That's what I mean by a comparative advantage. Absolute advantage means you do it absolutely better than anybody else on the planet. Comparative advantage means you do it at a comparatively lower cost. So, for example, if you're trying to convince the people you live with that you, for example, would like to hire a housekeeping service, think about the fact that if you know you have to clean the house for 6 hours on Saturday, you are then having to give up all of the other things that you could be doing that might be more fun or that might be more profitable for your organization. Now, that other person is probably better at cleaning your house than you are, because they do it all the time and they're good at it. So think about the idea that if we do the things that we do best and we allow other people to do the things that they do best, we're all more efficient. I will share with you folks, I don't do my own PowerPoints. I write out in Word what I want and I send them to a guy and he makes them pretty and he makes all of this happen. And because I know that he does them better and faster, and he is more creative about this as well. So I love that. So Frank's funny. You're so funny. Leave me alone. Don't interrupt me unless the building's on fire. See that? Oh, that used to work so well. And then Cheryl says, at the start of the call, just say, hey, I've got a hard stop at 3:00 so you can plan our time. Oh, I love that. That is terrific. It's fabulous. And then 5-minute jobs. 5-minute jobs are great. Anything that takes less than 5 minutes, because we just bang them out, get them done, cross them off the list, and it gives us that sense of accomplishment. So if you're ever feeling overwhelmed, all right, so I have a book on procrastination that I need to do one final chop on it, and I need to send it to the publisher, and we are good to go. But I've looked at it now so many times that I'm like, I procrastinate, which makes it, of course, all funnier. I am procrastinating, doing the final editing on my book on procrastination. And so when I get it in front of me, I say, I need a little burst of motivation. I'm going to set the timer for 5 minutes, and I am going to file this paperwork on my desk for 5 minutes, give myself that sense of accomplishment, and then I can focus on that. So when this book comes out, you'll be the first to share it. Lynette, thank you so much. Frank also says there's no chairs in the office, so nobody can sit down, so everybody stands up. I used to have a boss who did that too. And then I had another boss who would say, we're going to have a walking meeting. And everybody's like, what? But then he got mad when nobody took notes because, we were all walking. So there's that. So awesome. Anyway, so this is one of the 5-minute plans I use all the time, because it gives you that burst of energy. It gives you that sense of accomplishment. Now, this is a handout I use when I talk about procrastination. So I thought I'd share it with you because some of you have sent a note to me that said, I just need something, but procrastination is killing me. So let's supercharge the productivity with just a few things. First, set a timer. I'm such a fan of timers. Pomodoros it's a work break strategy where you focus on one thing for 25 minutes, then take a 5-minute break. So here's how my friends and I do this. We get on a Zoom call. We'll get on a Zoom call. We will plan it for 2 hours. We say we're going to catch up for 15 minutes. Everybody's sitting here doing work. Okay, what are you working on? How's things going? All this stuff. How was your weekend? We get 15 minutes, hard stop. We say, okay, ready, set, go. Somebody sets a timer on their screen, so it counts down the minutes. Before it starts, you have to tell everybody what it is you're going to accomplish in that 25 minutes. Boom, serious accountability. And then you come back and you say, hey, I did this. You report out to each other for 5 minutes. You grab a bottle of water, and then you start it all over again. 25 minutes. That's a Pomodoro. Only handle things once. That is, Frank, I know you know how to do this too. It's an oldie but a goodie, but only touch paperwork once. Once you have that piece of paper, the email, the phone call, deal with it right away. Unless you're wildly distracted by it. Unless it takes major thinking time. There's, again, back to the brain activity. We know that we can only do hard, deep thinking work for about 4 hours a day. Harvard came out with this. Another study recently validated this, and you know this. the little things that take the little time, you handle it once, or it's a quick phone call, or it's a quick reply to a text or whatever. Those are all crazy distractions that if you let them by saying, oh, I'll just do this right now, you'll never get to the really important things. And then you spend the 8-hour days doing the little easy work things instead of the hard work, the meaningful work that you really, really needed to do. And Cheryl says, yep, fat. File it, act on it, or toss it. And the do, delegate, and delete is absolutely fantastic. I'm going to share with you how I do my email too, and I hope that's helpful. And then figure out when you're most productive. Now, some people say, well, I'm most productive first thing in the morning or late at night. I have friends who do their very best work between 8 o'clock at night and 2 o'clock in the morning. I will share with you that I'm not at my best work from 8 o'clock at night till 2 o'clock in the morning. No. At 8 o'clock at night, I want a glass of wine in my hand, and then I want to be sleeping by about 10:30. That's just me. It is not a good time for me to be working. But here's the issue. I know that if I have to do writing work, that is not always first thing in the morning. I know I am better returning emails and writing contracts and doing proposals first thing in the morning. I don't necessarily do my best writing in the morning because in my head, I've got all those other things I need to respond to. And knowing that I've got a full email batch stresses me out. So I know that when I'm going to do certain activities, it's best during certain times of the day. So we talk about figuring out when you are most productive throughout the day. That's partly which activities and when are you most productive? So think about just going to the gym. When are you most productive going to the gym? And a lot of people say first thing in the morning. Okay, again, I am not most productive at the gym first thing in the morning. My body feels sluggish. I just want coffee. But afternoon, when I'm feeling kind of sluggish and I don't really want to make phone calls, that to me is a better time to go to the gym. So again, figure out what it is you want to do and then figure out when your best times are to do it. So Cody, I love that note. If it's after 4:30, you're cleaning the desk and writing the game plan for the next day. Oh my gosh, you're gonna love this next part too. All right. So then impose your own deadlines. Yes. I remember being in college and having to manage writing papers. And back then, because it was the olden days, we typed our papers. Yep, typing. Which meant that you had to borrow typewriters. Not everybody had their own typewriter. So you had to schedule using the typewriters around other people, which meant you had to figure out your deadlines. Make sure you're imposing deadlines. And I will show you on my monthly activity form what my anti-procrastination device is as well. Set a limit on frivolous social media and internet time. Folks, it's so easy to get sucked into one video and then 2 videos and then commenting on something and then getting excited and all of that. If you're supposed to be working, don't do that. Stay off social media. It's not healthy. It's not good for you and it's going to waste time. My guilty pleasure is watching videos of huskies who are singing and then the creator of the video puts words in to interpret what the dog could be thinking or what they're just making things up. I just find it hilarious because I don't have huskies and I think it's just hilarious. But I can watch that for 30 minutes. Not productive, not healthy, not good for me. So I have to not do that during the workday. Avoid multitasking. Oh, so sometimes in a quest to get all the things done, we try to do so many things at once that we do none of them well. So if that doesn't work for you and you know who you are, figure out how you can really focus on the big brain activity, which is the important activity, and then multitask the little things if you feel like you must do that. Create a to-do list at the end of the day. Cody, that's exactly what you were just talking about. Before you leave work, make sure you've got that to-do list and make sure it is consistent every single day. I'm going to show you all my actual one when we get to that because I think you'll find it interesting. I always have my phone turned off. Always. If I'm on stage, I can't have the ringer work. I can't have the ringer go off. It's a terrible, terrible, terrible idea. I always have the notifications turned off. I can have it vibrate. I cannot have it make noise because then it beeps and it buzzes and that's just wildly distracting to me. So that might work for you. I don't know. Now, last week I shared with the group this 12-month planner. And the 12-month planner is the 12 months of actions for stronger strategy, better decisions, faster results. And it looks like this. So again, this is what I shared last week. This is my monthly planner. This is actually on my actual planner. This is what I am doing. And then the page 2 of this every single month is what I'm going to resolve, who I am going to contact for advice, who am I going to reach out to, what does the month look like, what I'm grateful for, what I learned this month. Okay, but here's my monthly action plan. I love my monthly action plan. So I use the monthly action plan because this is my hardcover. This is mine. And I do drink my own Kool-Aid and I use my own stuff. And I map out at the end of the month some of the goals. So for example, in my monthly action plan, I might say, this has to happen today. This is my top issue. And then the time in minutes, that is the anti-procrastination device. Because sometimes I say, I really need to make 3 sales calls every single day. Oh, making 3 sales calls, like some of you, it just seems so daunting. But then I say, hang on, it's going to take me 15 minutes. And once I see it in 15 minutes, then I think, do I want to think about it for 3 hours and have it hang over me? Or do I just want to get it done, time in minutes, and get that done? If you schedule it, it gets done. And then, of course, I put the due dates on that. So that might be helpful. Now, email management. This is its own separate section. Folks, this is how you regain control over your email. First, we have to triage the email. When you send emails, a few things to help the people on your teams as well as in your life, triage the email that's coming from you. And once you start getting them used to this, they will expect this from you and they will respond in kind. So let me show you how this works. Use keywords in the subject line. For me to send Frank a note and just say, hey, Frank, it's Mary, just Mary checking in. That is a terrible, terrible email subject line. No. You know what's much stronger? Mary responding to Frank's note about the event in Florida. Aha, that is better. If you are tasking someone, then you include the deadline. So I might say, Cheryl, Mary needs this promotional link from you by Friday. And then she knows exactly what she has to do. And then in the body of the email, then I say, Cheryl, I'm so excited to promote your new stuff. And I would very much like to promote that in my next newsletter, which goes out Monday, which means I need it by Friday. This is the BLUF idea. In the military, we use the acronym BLUF, bottom line up front. And not everybody uses that. But when you think about it, you give them the subject because most people do their emails on their phone. And you want the who, what, when, where, why in the body. So budgets must be completed by Friday, August 30th, and sent to the CFO's email, or else the budget defaults to 0 for next year. Got it. So people know right away what has to happen. So some people need to ease into this. Then I also use my method, which is called DICE. Also in the subject line, if I am asking Cheryl to do something, I'm going to use DICE. It's an acronym for decide, information, coordination, or execute or act. Some people don't like the word execute, but execution is how things get done. Action is also good, but DECA didn't sound as good. So the keywords for DICE, decide, info, cord, execute. So if I say in the very beginning, and let's say Cheryl is trained to this, I say coordinate or execute. Cheryl, Mary needs this promotion by Friday. Boom. Now she knows exactly what she has to do. For my team, if they send me something and the first word is decide, I know that everybody's waiting for my decision, so I can't hold up the train. If it's just info, if it's just FYI, that can go into, I can read it later. If it's coordination, that's a reply all. If it's execute, that means the action is on me. I'm responsible for taking action and I've got to make that happen. So then, and the deadline is important. Budget submissions are due by Friday. I need this by this time. Decide whether or not you want green or purple napkins. And when you start to train people to triage the email so that they are more concise, more focused with deadlines and topics that are easier to see, especially on your phone, you'll be amazed at how much time you can save. So on Amazon, this is the Better in 52 Weeks book that some of you had asked about last week. And this is what this looks like. It is just full of the 5-minute plans that are divided into 5 sections. One is on building your division, your department, or your business. One is on growing all of those things with specific challenges such as focusing and meetings and leadership improvement and leadership development. And then there's a leadership component, a productivity component, as well as a teamwork component. Just because some of you asked last week, I forgot to include all the details on that. So number 5, foster happiness at work. And I know that for some of us who are brought up to think that work is work and it's supposed to be miserable, fostering a happy work culture sounds a little counterintuitive. But we know that people want to be happy. Now, some things make different people happy. Sometimes it's being around other people. Sometimes it's a great paycheck. Sometimes it's being around your dogs or cats. Whatever happiness looks like to your folks, you got to know what that looks like. So how do you create a positive work culture that is productive? Because a lot of my CEOs push back on this. Oh, so Mary, you're just saying that everybody should sit around and be happy and sing songs and play games and drink free sodas. No, I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is, a positive workplace is where people feel valued, respected, and listened to, but they're also engaging collaboratively on the purpose of the organization, that the team is recognized for achievements, and that it is a team-centered ideology, that we are better together, and people actually believe that. So yeah, an office puppy would be awesome. Some people are allergic to dogs, so it just has to be a hyperallergenic dog and really well trained. I'm going to put, because there's a good comment right there. I'm going to say that a well-trained dog is welcome almost everywhere. Just saying, because I'm a big dog fan. So we want a place where people want to be part of the team. They're working so that they don't disappoint their team members, and that they're not looking for individual recognition, that they would rather the team be recognized than the individual. 6, offer flexible work arrangements. And again, this makes some of my senior folks roll their eyes. I am not talking about this work-life balance thing because I don't think it exists. I think our work is so entwined in our life that we cannot disengage ourselves from work all the time and just say, oh, I'm just going to go home and magically flip a switch. We're mostly bringing work home with us, and that's just kind of how it is. But it also means that if we are thinking about work and doing things, flexibility could be telecommuting on some days. It could be flexible times and days. Again, I've got a member on my team. He is most productive from 8 p.m. to 2 a.m. None of the rest of us are around. None of the rest of us want to be awake at that time, but that works for him. And when he first came on, I noticed he was just always late, always struggling. And he finally told me that his natural circadian rhythm, and this is way before COVID and hybrid work and remote work. He said his natural circadian rhythm is he just likes to sleep from about 4 or 5 a.m. till noon. Okay, that is not my natural circadian rhythm, but for him, it is better. And I will share with you that for the night owls, you, like William, you can totally use this. What you say is, hey, I am happy to send you this at the end. Cody's packing things up at 4:30. Great. He's going to send it over to William. And William's like, woo-hoo, I'm just starting the day. I know exactly what I got to manage instead of getting all this stuff piecemeal. So this can work. Also, work sharing works. When you've truly got a great team ideology, people can share work. And as long as the results-oriented rewards are in place, you can't just have people who say, yes, we're going to share the work, and then one person doesn't do it, and then that makes people mad. So encourage having fun as a group. I remember being in the Navy and planning a holiday party, and people would say they didn't want to go. It was during the workday. I'm like, okay, well, it's not an option. It's not an option to be at work at your desk. It is mandatory for you to come and have fun. And years later, one of my team members said, you made us do that. He said, and I absolutely didn't want to go. I complained the whole way getting there. And then we went and I actually got to know other team members, other members of our department a little bit better. And we've stayed friends to this day. And I remember saying to them, at that holiday party, I can't believe we're being forced to be here and have mandatory fun. And the other person goes, me too, this is just terrible. And because of that, they're now best friends. So encourage your team to take breaks with each other. Go for walks together, have office potlucks, have meetings that are designed to have an element of fun. Now, this is really hard for me because I do not like to waste time on meaningless things. But if it is fun stuff that matters, then I'm all in. One of the other articles I wrote in December before Christmas is this idea of a group giving projects. Group giving projects are where everybody gets together and decides they're going to do some good in the community or for another group of people who may not be as fortunate. Now, here's where this is great. We know that when you are angry or sad or depressed, if you go volunteer somewhere and you have to focus on other people, it actually allows your body to process the chemical cortisol faster. So it gets you, so it's not just, if you do something nice for other people, you'll feel better about yourself. There's actually a chemical reason why this happens. So think about the fact that when you reduce cortisol in your system, it reduces blood pressure. It decreases the amount of negative adrenaline that's in your body. It allows this to be processed. It not only allows your cholesterol levels to be better, but it's amazing the physiological aspects of a giving project can do for you physically. And then as a group, it's something that people, when you think back on it, it actually, again, serves as a stress reducer. And then, I know that, you said you can't bring your dog to work, Dave. I just kind of like the idea. Maybe you swap off days. I don't know. But the goal is to get people to talk to each other about non-work topics, because that gets people to know each other and it increases trust when they do talk about work. All right. So I'm just going to give you an example. There was a person I worked with at a given time in my life, and I was fairly young. And he and I were just not getting along, which is it was very unusual for me, because mostly I can get along with almost anybody, but this guy just rubbed me wrong. And I went to my boss and I said, look, I got to find a way to get along with this guy because he's driving me crazy and I am not reaching him and I don't know what to do. My boss gave us a job together of picking up trash for 2 hours together. One of us had to hold the bag and one of us had to get the little stick thing, So we had to talk. And in talking over 2 hours, because there's no other distractions, apparently I found out that he was trying to impress other people with some of the things he was saying. And I realized that maybe I was taking some of the things he was saying a little more defensively than I normally would, because that, he was kind of poking at that raw spot. So after 2 hours picking up trash together, we went back to the boss and we're like, okay, problem solved and things are cleaner. So congratulations. I'm not saying that you assign people to pick up trash. I'm just saying get people to do things outside of work. Help your team manage their time and their workload. And here's what I mean by this. This is my daily productivity sheet. It's one of the downloads you have today. Every single day, I map this out. I do it the day before, like Cody does. I write the date. So I write Monday. Here's the date. Here's my calls to make. Here's the follow-up. Here's my appointments. Here's my to-dos, what I really must do. And my appointments that I might have follow-up on, and then today's accomplishments. I'll share with you, I'm terrible about putting down the accomplishments, but I'm very good at putting down the calls to make, and then I get them done because they are on this piece of paper. This is my weekly productivity plan. It looks a lot like the monthly action plan because, again, I need to map out what I need to get done every day. This is the big stuff that I have to do. I'm not talking about, the quick 2-minute phone call or texting, whatever. I'm talking about the things I need to get done. So I map this out. And then help your people realistically plan their time and show them how to delegate or outsource tasks, even if nobody works for them. You can outsource things to places like Fiverr and Upwork, as long as you provide very clear priorities and direction. That can be very positive. You're still responsible for getting it done, but in order to maybe maximize your time and prevent burnout, making sure that people know that there's options for them to outsource and delegate. And some people say, yeah, but if I give people a budget to outsource and delegate, they'll just do. No, you don't necessarily have to do that. And I tell my people, look, your company's not going to pay for that, nor should they. But if you can pay somebody, I use one particular group where it's they'll do 5 jobs. I've got a program where it's 5 jobs a month. They roll over to the next month. So if I don't use them that month, it goes into the next one. It's supposed to take them, because they're good at it, about 20 minutes. But let's say it's like an hour project for them. They'll come back and say, hey, this is 3 jobs. I'm like, okay. But if I had to do it, either it wouldn't get done at all, or it might take me 5 hours. So for me, outsourcing is fabulous. Number 9, support for people mentally, physically, and spiritually. And I mean all of this because none of us are human vacuums. We all have all the connected pieces. So brainstorm with your team on ways to reduce stress and stay healthy when you're short on time and resources. And again, this is counterintuitive. Mary, you want us to take time away from our busy schedule so that we can talk about how we can reduce stress because we're already short on time. Yes, that is exactly what I'm saying. Because sometimes one of the things you can do is say, I call it the 5-minute game. Everybody says, I've got Everybody gets to bring to the table a 5-minute job that they just don't want to do. Maybe you just don't want to call back that client. Maybe you said you get back to them more the proposal 2 weeks ago and you should call them, but it's now been 2 weeks and you just don't want to and you're feeling terrible. Whatever it is, everybody gets to walk in on an index card with a 5-minute job. And then you throw them in the middle of the table and then you pick a number and you get to pick somebody else's 5-minute job that you're going to do. And it's kind of a fun way to get people to understand what other people's, responsibilities are and some things that they don't really like doing. But it's also kind of a fun way to share the load and take the stress off other people. Now, as I'm wrapping up, I want to share with you that when we are leading people in productivity, you think you are bringing certain characteristics to the table, and you are. So if I just said, hey, pick 3 characteristics from this list that you bring to the table as a leader, as a manager, as a coworker, you could probably think of 3 things. But one of the more interesting aspects of what we get to do is then we get to go to your people and say, so from this list, what do you need your boss to do? And figure out if those 3 words match up. Because most people put on the list, this is what I am, but what they need from their boss might be something very different. It's very helpful to do this exercise. And then go to your boss and say, hey, I think I'm bringing these characteristics to the team. And your boss might say, and that's not what I want. So just getting clarity with how you lead, I think, is helpful. And then number 10, as we wrap up, recognize and celebrate group events and achievements. And again, I'm not saying you have fun every single day, but there's the dog. Reward the good behavior, just like you with a puppy. Reward good behavior and the right results when you get that. And make sure that people are feeling appreciated enough at work. Because even though we are a nation of participation trophies, most people, if you ask them, would say they do not get enough appreciation at work. And some people just cringe at the idea of public recognition, so don't do that for them. But they might want just a handwritten note from you or a genuine compliment in front of other people they respect or some kind of incentive. So for this week's resources, folks, this is where you're going to go to get these. As I mentioned in the beginning, you can text the word dog to 66866. You can do it on your phone. Text the word dog to 66866. It's going to ask you for your email, and that's going to send you to the site. As leaders and managers, folks, we have to model the things we want to see. And if your people seeing you flustered all the time, wasting lots of time, disorganized, not clear on the goals, that's kind of what they're going to do too. So we've got to be really careful, even if the person we're leading is ourselves. And the world needs us. We need to stay focused. We need to stay productive, especially now, where there's all kinds of distractions out there and all kinds of people who are not getting the things done that they need to get done.